Just a quick note before we begin. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. We are not licensed professionals, just parents who've experienced unimaginable loss. This isn't meant to replace help from a therapist, doctor, or other mental health professional. If you're struggling, please reach out to someone qualified. You are not alone. Welcome back to Don't Forget to Breathe. I'm Bruce Barker, here with my co-host, Kristin Glenn. In the first parts of this conversation, we talked about the myth that time heals all wounds and how grief doesn't expire, even as support sometimes does. In this final part, we want to talk about something many grieving parents quietly long for: to simply be seen where we are, not fixed, not rushed, not encouraged to look for the silver lining, just seen. We live in a culture where it's okay to talk about our children until they die. And then suddenly their name becomes something people are afraid to say. Conversations become awkward. Memories go unshared. And grief becomes something we're expected to carry silently. So tonight we're talking about what it means to let grief be spoken out loud, to talk about our child without trying to make anything better, and why asking how they lived can be far more healing than asking how they died. Let's take a breath and continue the conversation. Would you say, and I think I could speak it to be true for me, that, and we'll see what our listeners think, let us know what you think about this, that if we just want to be seen where we are, because we're not toxic, we're not contagious, and be okay with letting the grief just be spoken out loud, that it's okay to talk about our child, but not try to make it better in the same breath, so that they can, so that they could ask and talk about, this with Kristin, or I remember that, or what, just speak openly about it, but not try to fix anything. Just see us where we are and be there beside us.
We live in a culture that we talk about our children often, but it's like the ending of their time here on earth is some kind of switch where we're not supposed to do that anymore. It becomes taboo. Or I even watched this incredible string on Facebook. This friend of my daughter's had gone through a really tragic loss, and she was trying to say, yes, I went through this loss, and now I'm working on bringing joy into my life. And, she showed a picture of her new baby, and she had so many responses, but not one response validated that she was talking about sorrow. Every single response went to, oh, what a cute baby, and what a, congrats. And yes, that was part of the message, but her brave, courageous post was, I am navigating deep, deep sorrow. And there wasn't one response on that social media platform that said, I see you. I see all of you. It basically, it was so shocking to me to see that all people were comfortable with was validating just the joy part. It was such an example of how we do that we can't say, I also see your sorrow. And that doesn't diminish the joy.
And even seeing the power and the strength of her vulnerability to put that out there.
Yes.
Acknowledging that, and to be able to go, okay, they see me. Yeah. And not the silver lining parts. They see me.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I think with some of those things that we talk about that do help, and as we're saying, that is with the language that honors the love that we have. And I say that as have, not had.
No past tense there.
No past
Absolutely.
tense. And being able to say their name and have conversations and tell stories. Is there someone that you don't have to name names, but who lets you talk about Zach without trying to make anything better, that sits with you?
One person.
Yeah.
One person. One literal soulmate friend that just embraces those conversations and shares them and, goes through that. What's interesting is that it's not painful as much. That's, I guess, where my grief has shifted. It's so joyful for us to have conversations about him. And for me to hear maybe a new memory that because she was a big part of his life. So for her to also say, oh yeah, and one time, and to make him real, I think that's the other thing. I love when people allow him to just be an ornery little boy and not, some saint, because he was ornery and he was not perfect. And it's so incredible. But yeah, when you ask that question, it's narrowed, and she's truly the only person that brings him up just organically. It's not forced. It's not just on certain days. I welcome when people say, which will come in this month of February, thinking of you and Zach on this day of his birthday. That's very sweet this many years later. And I don't fault people, but also I missed him a month ago on Wednesday night at 10 p.m. And I missed him when I was watching this train go by. And it's not like I consolidate all my missing of him for 3 days a year.
Right.
What about you? Who do you have that talks really just naturally about your sweet Kristin?
No one.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the reality for probably a large majority of our listeners. There's not me. Again, I'm single, and I was single at the time Kristin died. So maybe couples, there may be those honest conversations, maybe. But for me, no. The only time, and it's really only slightly, is those that find out that from work or acquaintances that way, that find out that I have this, this podcast that we're on and what the subject matter is. And maybe somebody might ask, but no one is asking, well, tell me about her. It's just the probably the only question that I've heard them step out into is, can you tell me how she died? Or are you okay with sharing that? But not a single one has said, well, tell me about her.
Yeah,
what did she like to do? What was nothing? So,
and why do we ask how children died instead of how they lived? Like, tell me how Kristin lived.
Yeah.
It's such a powerful question. Tell me about anything is a gift. I always think when I can have images in my mind now of a child that someone has loved and lost, and it's such a gift for me when they'll share those pictures, those silly things, the smell of their dirty socks, the way they, I love to hear those things, but we don't ask them enough, because I think what we're worried about is that the grief is bound to follow, and it will be a deep sorrow, and I'm not equipped to deal with that. Mm-hmm. So if I open this door towards asking Bruce about Kristin, how can it possibly not go into his deep sorrow? And I won't know how to deal with that, so I'm just not going to ask.
Yeah. It's easier not to talk about than to talk about. If you think about it, and this may be for, future episodes when we talk about how you can, how people can support those who have not had a child loss, can support those who have, and those friends, family, whatever that might be. Because when you ask, how did they, and again, I don't mind. People can ask me anything they want. I'm a completely open book about it. But if you want to know the details, can you tell me what happened? Okay. Do you want me to tell you about where I was and when I got the phone call and what my reaction was, and that I don't remember driving 35 miles back to my office. And because if I'm telling that story where I am now, one of the things that time has given me is it lets me go right back to that moment.
Yes.
If that's what you want me thinking about, and that's fine. I mean, I'm at the point where I can do that, but ask me about when, we went to a Jimmy Buffett concert together, and I can picture it right now. And so then it's more, so now I'm smiling about it and thinking about it and remembering those, those kind of moments. I don't know. It might be, and maybe this is something that we talk about of what actually helps, since we know time doesn't, is having those photos. Not, I mean, and I have, something that someone could look at it and interpret this as, this is a shrine or a memorial on a particular shelf. But let's say at work, of having those candid type photos. I could put that photo up, and maybe I'll just do this just to see. Put the photo up of her wearing her, balloon parrot head, on her head, and we're both, and this was, wow, this is way before having actually a selfie, but it is the two of us, and we're at this Jimmy Buffett concert, and for someone to say, "Tell me about that,"
Yeah.
and then I can tell them about how much she loved what Dad listened to and wanted to go to the concert. And we went to the concert, and she knew the words, and we had a blast. Those, yeah, ask those questions.
Oh my gosh. I hope you'll put that picture up. We all want to hear how that goes. 'Cause I mean, I can picture it. You just gave me a gift of a moment with Kristin that I didn't have 4 minutes ago. And I think that the right people will be in your space to also take that memory away. One thing struck me, I don't remember when we were talking, and I don't know if it was on a episode or just in our many off-air conversations, but you said to me, Bruce, that it took you a long time to continue to acknowledge yourself as a parent, not of Kristin's dad, but to say, I am forever a father. Can you tell me about what shifted for you? I will always view you as a father, as your friend, but when did that shift happen for you?
I was kind of, I don't know, forced into it, pushed into it, whatever you want to say. Is the first 4 years after Krista died and I was single, if someone would ask, hey, do you have any kids? 9 times out of 10, I would say, no, I don't. Because I discounted their question and go, I'm already concluding going, I don't think you want to go down this road.
Right.
You don't want me to actually tell you the truth and tell you what the deal is. And so that's how I went around the swamp. But where I got pushed into it, so to speak, is when I got married, my now ex-wife had 3 sons. So now we're in situations where if people know that it's a newish marriage or whatever, and may ask the question, if we're in a group setting and it's like, do you have any kids? Yeah, like, yeah, I have these 3 boys, and well, Bruce, do you have any of your own? And I would say, I have these 3, but my daughter died in 2006. So you ask me, and I'm going to tell you. And so then that put me back into, I am still a parent to my daughter.
Yeah.
But it was, yeah, initially kind of avoiding, maybe is the right word. I don't know.
Protecting.
Yeah. And then also just feeling like I'm not a dad anymore until being in a situation that I realized I still am whether she's here or not.
Absolutely. I believe that at my core.
Yeah. So really sometime fairly early on in the marriage, having that realization that, oh, I'm a dad again. But then wait a minute. I've always been, it never changed. It never stopped.
Right. I've been a dad. Absolutely. We were in a setting one time, someone asked us kind of simultaneously, how many children do you guys have? And it was recent. So total, we have 5 children with Zach. And at the exact same time, I said 5, he said 4.
Ooh.
And, this is the only marriage we've had. And so we kind of looked at each other and the conversation, just went on. But afterwards, I had to really check in with him and say, 4? Do you always say 4? What? Why'd you say 4? It felt like he was, what about Zach? But then he put it so wisely back to me and he said, I'm just protecting myself and Zach. I'm never going to see those people again. They don't deserve to know about him. I'm saving him. I'm saving him for the people that deserve him. And I thought, okay, that's beautiful. It's beautiful that, we can both live in that. Like, I've never not been able to say 5. And now I know that when he's in a situation that he doesn't think will ever blossom into anything other than a casual person at a party, he's going to protect himself because he doesn't want to go into it. And that's okay. That's not a minimizing of his love or his grief for Zach. But it was a weird moment that I didn't realize was happening separately until we had it happen together. Does that make sense? Like, wow, we just said different numbers.
I think our listeners get that. Those that are our couples will get that.
Well, and I think you just speak the truth of so many people that I work with that have lost their only child.
Yeah.
That is a really important thing to hear and validate, of that forever parenthood. We don't get to actively parent them on this earth, but being there forever, their forever mom, their forever dad. But I know it comes with its own sharpness, and it's something I think we really need to be curious about for each other.
Yeah. Kristin, what would you tell the parents that are listening that feel isolated or maybe not a part of, even though we invite them all the time to be a part of this community, but because there's been this society, kind of giving this timeline, I guess a good way to put it is it's an invisible grief clock, right? When there's been enough time, what would you tell the parents that are listening? You're not isolated. You're not alone. You're not tied to this clock.
Yeah. Gosh, I think I would hear them that it feels that it is a lonely journey. That you do have to kind of figure it out ultimately on your own. But to have people walking alongside of you is invaluable. I had a lot of people that were incredibly supportive, but I feel like I ultimately had to figure this out for myself. My husband couldn't do it. My mom couldn't do it. My best friend, nobody could do this work for me, So it sounds kind of counterintuitive to say it, but I would almost say you are a bit alone in the true navigation of this. And that's okay, because your relationship with your child was uniquely yours, and now your grief is going to be uniquely yours. And you can be in a wonderful, supportive group, relationship, situation, and there will be still so many moments that you feel completely alone, because ultimately, I kind of feel like you are. I know that doesn't sound like maybe the right answer, but I think it's kind of real for most people. And to to not validate that, I think makes us feel like, well, then I'm the only person feeling alone. So now I'm alone in my aloneness. But to just actually say, yep, we all are. We are all truly navigating this, regardless of our situations. We are all truly navigating this. Not by ourselves, that's not the right word, but solo, right?
Solo. Yeah. Because what I was thinking in that is definitely solo, and we're all in the same boat individually,
Yeah.
but
No.
still collectively in the same boat. So it's this, what we're doing with this podcast is creating this community. So while you may feel alone and while your grief and your journey is unique, you can know that you are part of this community. That we see you in your aloneness and your isolation, because we've all felt it and feel it.
Right.
But we feel it together.
Yeah.
You know,
that's exactly right.
Yeah. So it is, it's solo. So I do kind of along the same thing with my real job. I'm able to travel and take some fun trips, but I do them solo. So they're solo trips, but I'm around so many other people in these amazing places that I've been able to go. While I'm still solo, I'm still experiencing something that's unique and is different, and that I can see other people. So especially if it's at a particular, and I mean, I hate to use the word attraction, but something that a tourist spot maybe be drawn to, I can see all of the other people that are enjoying it and seeing it and experiencing it and feeling it, even though I'm solo.
Yeah, but you're not alone.
But I'm not alone.
I think there's a difference there.
Where we are in this community is, I don't know how you feel, but I get it. We're on the same boat.
Yeah.
Yeah, but still solo. So,
because I think if people think, oh, no, other people don't feel alone because they have X amount of siblings, or they have this perfect marriage, or they have really supportive parents, it's going back to what we do with all the social media. We think, oh, they must not feel alone. And if you talk to anyone after this type of tragedy, there have been moments they feel completely alone. They feel like they are having to navigate it solo. So I think that's an interesting thing to think about and to help validate. So there's not that sense of others aren't having to figure this out on their own because they have a lot of people walking alongside them. They're still having to figure out their own path.
Yeah. Do you think that some of that loneliness is attributed to pressure that, society's grief clock? That if you're not aligned with what society thinks, where society thinks you should be on the timeline, or in whatever stages, that's where that loneliness can come out, because now you've been isolated by society thinking, or you're feeling the pressure of society thinking you should be at some other point by now. So why am I not? So therefore, okay, this is too much, or I'm still sad. Yeah, you're going to be sad.
Right. Well, and there's almost this shame in that.
Yeah.
That I'm failing grief. I'm not doing it the right way. I remember working with this mom vividly talking about, she said something along the lines of like, is there like a grief trophy if I do this right? If I do it the way my mom and my sister want me to do I get a grief trophy? And it's like, nope. And there's this thought of, well, what if people think that I'm not doing this in the right timeline? Or I had my own processing around what to do, my husband and I, with Zach's remains. And it's such a personal decision. There's absolutely excruciating to be having to make that decision for your child in the first place. But we moved communities and, didn't for like 20 years decide that there was like a space that we wanted his remains to be. And we invited friends and family 20 years later to be part of that. And one, again, well-meaning soul, but a friend of mine that tends to be a bit blunt came up and he's like, why now? Why do we have to do this now? We were all so sad in the beginning after Zach's death. Why do we have to bring this all up again? I was like, oh man, we made you uncomfortable today because I've asked people to gather for this, internment that felt right for me at this stage of my life, not to have this be something I didn't put some closure to and make a decision that was right for my husband, for my husband and I. But he did say that to me. Like, why now? Why do we have to keep, if I ever did something in the future, honoring a milestone for Zach, I won't include him.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like that's the perfect example of that societal grief clock.
Yeah. And his clock was ticked. He didn't want to do this anymore.
Yeah. And I think it's a matter of giving yourself permission to grieve for life. And by saying grieve for life, that's not you're going to be sad and depressed and in a dark place. That's not it, because it's grieving, because grief stays with you, and it's just how you get along and what you've learned along the way, and what you've learned worked and what didn't work. Because grief is still there. So we've talked about that, where joy and grief can be in the same moment. So talking about, Kristin, that memory of Kristin and I at the concert, there's still grief when I'm remembering and saying that, because that won't happen again.
Right.
And so I grieve the fact that we don't get to do that again, but joy in remembering that time.
Yeah.
And seeing her face and listening to her sing along and know all the words. It's just giving ourselves permission to continue that, no matter what society's timeline says where we should be at a particular time. I think one, as we kind of wrap up a little bit, that we know, I think there's not much of a truer statement. We know that time doesn't heal because love doesn't end. And we know that the love is still there. So love and grief, and I know I've heard it, and I'm sure you have too, about, the measure of someone's grief is equal to the measure of someone's love, and whatever those, the things are. So time's not going to heal what's not going to go away, which is the love. And we'll always have that, the love and the grief hand in hand.
Yeah. And it's really just learning to live alongside both of them. I think there's some beauty in that, and some curiosities about what both have to teach us. My grief teaches me every single day, just like my love does. And I'm kind of equally comfortable with both of them after this many years. I guess that's what has changed, not because of time, but because of the intentional journey that I've put myself on and that I've witnessed others. And there's just so much to be learned. This has been really thought-provoking. This will not be an episode that I can just turn off in my brain. I'm going to have to do an extra walk around the block tonight after this one, because it has brought up a lot, not in a sorrowful way, but in a really important way for me personally. So I hope it has for people listening as well.
Well, I mean, I think that's like I say, we continue to learn, and we continue to heal. And I think this is it's a prime example. In our conversation, there's things that come up, and it's like, okay, I need to process that a little more. It doesn't mean I'm broken.
Far from it. Far from it. Yeah.
It just means I still love Kristin now as much as I ever did before.
Absolutely.
And I think for all of the parents that are out there listening, I think that's probably a very true statement, if you allow yourself to sit in it, is that you're not broken. You're loving your child just as much as you did when they were walking around on this earth. Or, depending on the case, it might have been 2 days that they were here or didn't even make it. So
yeah.
the Love's not gone. So we've mentioned it before. If there's anything that resonated with you in this episode, we invite you to come share your story, and we'll do it in the same format and the same space that Kristin and I are recording tonight. It's a platform where you can be wherever you are in the world. You don't need any special equipment, and to come on and share your story. All right, Kristin, I appreciate you. I appreciate the time. Thank you for being open and sharing.
Same, Bruce. It's been really good to talk through some of those things, and I hope it brought some meaning for other people. You guys all take care.
As we close out this conversation on why time doesn't heal the loss, but what might help, I want to remind you of something that may feel really important to hear. You are not broken. You're loving your child just as much today as you did when they were here on this earth. And because that love didn't end, the grief didn't either. It's not about following a timeline. It's not about earning a grief trophy. It's not about being better because enough time has passed. Over these 3 episodes, we've talked about what time doesn't do, but we also talked about what might help: being seen, being supported, doing the work, and giving yourself permission to grieve for life, while still allowing room for joy, for memories, and for the love that continues. If anything in this series resonated with you, we invite you to share your story. This space is created for parents just like you, wherever you are on your journey. Until next time, I'm Bruce Barker, along with Kristin Glenn, and please, don't forget to breathe. One more thing, if you found meaning or comfort in these conversations, consider becoming a supporter of the Don't Forget to Breathe podcast. Your support helps keep these stories alive and makes it possible for others to find hope in their own grief journey. For as little as $3 a month, your support goes to offset costs associated with production. You can learn more on the information page for this episode. You can also contact us by going to the show notes and click on Send Us a Text. Or my contact email is bruce.barker61@yahoo.com. That's BRUCE.BARKER61@yahoo.com. Until next time.